So recently I completed Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, and I started the second one since. But it was a really good game. I'm glad I played it. It's super interesting, and a lot of the characters sure do exist. I ended up getting attached to fewer characters than I expected, but overall I think that the cast is very, very vibrant, and they all, for the most part, serve a purpose that I think makes them at least interesting to some degree. So the way that I'm ranking these is personal preference, of course, but it's mostly based on their character and their role in the story. So basically, what do I think of them as a person, and what do they do in the narrative? And that's kind of about it. I'll try not to be too, biased throughout this, but I obviously have tastes, and they'll differ from yours, I imagine. Also, if you haven't played Danganronpa to completion, I suggest you leave, because I'm going to spoil most of the plot of the game here. Okay, so I organized the characters based on their number in the E-handbook. So that gives us Makoto. Now Makoto, main character, you control him. He's a total loser. I just don't like him. He has no personality. His personality is that he's friends with people. Like people are just like, wow, I just think it's so easy to talk to you, and all the supports. And that's just kind of lame. And in the story, he's just kind of a bitch, and he doesn't do anything. There's no impact on him at the beginning of the game versus the end. He's the same character. They're just like, you're kind of the ultimate hope, and you're actually totally the whole reason we were able to get out of here. But there's not really a reason why that was the case. And he's the ultimate lucky student, but that never comes into play in this game. And I just find that really disappointing. And I don't like Makoto. I do not. C tier. He is very mid. Next we have Kyotaka. Wow, he's so annoying. I'm honestly impressed. He's just called the ultimate moral compass, and he's the ultimate teacher's pet tattletale loser. I watched. Okay, so I looked at everybody's supports in this game, so I know their entire stories. I got all the achievements tied to that. And his whole thing is he studies. Did you know? Did you know that Kyotaka studies? Oh, he doesn't actually know what else to do because he studies. And then towards the end of his arc, when he dies in chapter 3. Yeah, when he dies in chapter 3, he's the most annoying son of a bitch at that point, because he's like, hey guys, I've actually fused with Mondo, and I have white hair now, so that's cool. And I thought that was lame and extra annoying on a character that was already lame and annoying. So he's going below Makoto, and that's an insult right there. Byakuya's a right bastard. He's cocky, he's so entitled, he has no concept of people's feelings and emotions. And because of that, I love him. S tier. Beautiful character. He looks good, his voice is phenomenal, which is true for most of the cast. Most of the cast sounds absolutely great. And his role in the story is super cool. Starting in chapter 2, because I don't think he has too much of a presence in chapter 1, he makes this mysterious air about him as a, what's the word? Basically a detective, because he spends all of his time in the library, and then during the investigation period, he just pulls you around and tells you about things. I don't really get why he set up a Jack the Killer scene. Good for him, I guess. But that kind of made that trial a bit muddy to me. Regardless, I enjoy his character and the way that he is so intolerant of the common folk that at the end of his social link chain, I'm sorry, they're not social links, I'm just in a persona mode. At the end of his social link, Makoto says, we could never be friends. I thought that was kind of nice, because Makoto's gimmick is he's friends with everybody, and they all love him because he's Makoto, and that's really annoying. But the fact that he could not break through to Byakuya, aside from earn a small respect from him because of his performance in the trials, was really interesting. So yeah, Byakuya's an S tier. I love this man so much. Such a good character. Next we have Mondo. I really like Mondo. His voice is great. He's the character with the fuck you attitude of this game, which, as I've learned by starting the second game, yeah, there's always a fuck you kind of attitude character. I like that he's the ultimate, what was it? It wasn't gang leader, he's like the ultimate biker or something. Was it gang leader? Point is, the gang thing is cool. I like the murder he commits, and it makes me sad. It makes me so sad that he kills Chihiro. But the story of his secret being that he's the reason his brother died, and just the overall attitude he takes. I have to take off points for the shit hair. The shit hair looks so bad, but he's a cool dude. I like his behavior. I like his supports. So I'm gonna put him in A tier. He makes me happy. Next we have Leon, the first Moiderer. He didn't really leave much of an impression on me. And in his supports, he's just kind of like, yeah, I do this for the babes. In fact, I was thinking of changing what I want to do so I can interact with more babes. And that's kind of it. He's not too interesting. I don't know if that's an uncommon take. He's marginally better than Makoto because at least he does something, you know? So, Hifumi is a rat bastard and I hate him. He's so annoying to talk to most of the time, and he's just kind of annoying through the entirety of the game that he's around. The most interesting he does is die. That's it. I actually really like his hook in chapter 3 where Celeste is the murderer. I think it's really funny that she got him to white knight for her and commit murder for her sake and get the double kill to get closer to leaving and getting the money. I genuinely thought that was cool, but that sucks for Hifumi. And also he has an entire support where he rants about not having access to Diet Coke. Anyway, he's cringe and I don't like him. F tier. And the only F tier on the list. Not a fan. Next we have Yasuhiro. I liked him a fair bit earlier on in the game, where he's just kind of like, he's goofy, but he's likable. And then as you get deeper into the game, he gets dumber somehow. Like when you have to convince him that Kyoko's not a ghost. That was pretty annoying, and I was not a fan of that. Imagine that. Originally, I was going to put him in like low B tier, but then I did his supports. And in his supports, he's just basically an entitled con artist. I did not feel like it fit into his narrative super well, which, you know, I guess it did because I'm not the one who wrote the game, but I didn't like that direction for him, and it made me like him less. So yeah, fun character to interact with in the main story until the late game. Not sure why he got to live and so many of these other characters died, but whatever. He can go above Leon though. There we go. I wish Sayaka was more memorable, dude. She's the ultimate pop idol, or idol sensation, or whatever. That's pretty cool. And I feel like, in the narrative, what she was supposed to teach Makoto, the character that you play, is don't trust everybody. And then he spends the rest of the game trusting everybody. Like, that's literally what he does. He trusts people when he should not. At all times. For the entirety of the game. So what point did Sayaka serve by dying in his bathroom after trying to kill him? That's anybody's guess. I don't know. And her supports aren't that interesting either, because it's just like trying to build a false connection with Makoto, which would have been cool if her death had a bigger impact on him or changed his character for the rest of the game, which it didn't, so she flops and fades into memory. So yeah, she's a C tier, even worse than Makoto. Alright, next we have the one and only Kyoko, fan favorite from what I've heard, and for good reason. She's very well made, or rather, she's a well-designed character. Physically and, mentally, I enjoy her mannerisms. Her secretiveness gets a little grating at times. And then there was that one sequence where she's just kind of mad at you. And the game plays that off as like, oh, she's just being a girl. And by the way, Danganronpa is kind of sexist, and I'm not into that. There's this whole, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of times where it's like, you should do this because you're a boy. And is that the best you can do? Because you're a boy? Or because you're a girl? Like, come on. This game isn't like 20 years old. It came out in the past 10 years. There's no reason to have shit because like, oh, you should touch the dead body because you're a boy or whatever. That was annoying. Anyway, that was a tangent. The real point is, I appreciate Kyoko and her role in the game from start to finish, especially towards the end where she really starts to bloom. There's chapters 5 and 6, right? That's how it ends. Her role in that last trial where she's gone the entire time and they want the player to doubt her, I thought that was super cool. But what I wanted during that sequence is I wanted Makoto to just straight up be guilty and not remember it, and then he gets murdered, and then we play as Kyoko for the rest of the game. I wish that happened, but it didn't, so that's a shame. So yeah, in conclusion, Kyoko's kind of a queen, so I'm going to put her in S tier above Byakuya, but narrowly. They're kind of interchangeable. I like them both a whole lot. So next we have Aoi. I wanted to like her more, but she's just kind of like, oh, she's the athletic girl, but also she likes to eat a lot. And that's okay, but I just wish there was more to her. Like her supports, I don't remember them that well, and I did them at the same time as everybody else in the extra mode. I wish there was more to her, and maybe there is, and I can't remember it right now. But she's not like insufferable like some of the characters in C tier or Hifumi. What really saves her is her relationship with Sakura. It's super good. It's so good. Gives her a lot of character, and it really defines like some of her motivations in the mid to late game, especially during Sakura's trial. Like what we learn about both of them throughout that trial and the lead up to it. It's pretty fun. So I'll put her in low B tier for that. Next we have Toko. She's not my kind of character. I see the appeal, and I know why others would like her. Both of her. Herself and Genocide Jack. That's what it was, Genocide Jack. But it's not really my type of character. The lewdness of it, the funny tongue. Yeah, mostly the lewdness of it and the funny tongue. Her supports are definitely some of the most interesting in the game, so she gets points for that. I feel like it dives into herself and Jack, or Jill, I guess, a fair bit. And I appreciate that, so I'll put her at the top of C tier, I think. And there we go. Sakura Ogami, the biggest and baddest bitch around. I love this character so much. Her voice is great. Her design is really unique and striking. Her supports are really cool. I like how, again, I still think that Danganronpa is kind of a sexist game, but her support with her ending with a love story I thought was pretty interesting, because you don't really think about her in that way, I would imagine, because it's not like, well, she's so strong, does she need a partner? But she's romantically interested in somebody, and I thought that was kind of cool. Her role in the plot is also phenomenal. It's one of my favorites. She's the traitor, but she doesn't act like it. She was supposed to initiate the first kill, but Leon accidentally, killed Sayaka, so that kind of kicked the plot of Chapter 1 forward. And then at that point, she's really, I don't know if friendly is the right term, but she's very protective, and she wants people to feel safe, and has a big mentality of, like, protecting people's dead bodies, or traveling in groups, that kind of thing. When you ultimately see her die, for me personally, that was a big shock. I was so upset, because she's one of my favorite characters. In fact, I will go ahead and say, she was my favorite character that was alive at that point. I think that her investigation and trial are the most interesting in the entire game. They're my favorite. I really like the idea of suicide and in a game, contextually in a game. And I also felt super big brain because I predicted it before the trial started. I was like, is this a suicide? Did she kill herself? And she did, and it makes sense. And then Monokuma doesn't fully read out the note that she left, but what we did get was super good, and it left like a great ending note on her as a character. So yeah, top of S tier, there we go. Next we have Celeste. Celeste is cool. Her design is super interesting. Her supports are mostly stories about gambling, and they're pretty entertaining, because she's like the best gambler ever. She literally never loses. And one support is like, so I played this game I've never really played before. I won, so that was cool. She also references obscure like gambling anime. A friend enlightened me of this, and I think that's pretty funny. I appreciate that the people who made her supports knew enough about gambling anime to reference such things. I liked her trial a lot as well. It was really good with the double murder and figuring out how Hifumi's body got all the way up to the 3rd floor. But that's because he was white knighting and faked death until Celeste killed him for real. So that was very funny. It was sad to see her go, but her role in the plot was filled, and she did a good job of it. So I would put her right under Mondo. So next we have Junko, who we don't truly see until the very, very end of the game, in the middle of the last trial, where she's like, yeah guys, I'm behind this. I really like that dupe. I like it a whole lot. It was kind of spoiled for me, which fucking sucks, but as much as the surprise would have been nice, it's seeing what happens that's the real treat, because I had no context. I just knew that Junko wasn't dead. I like how she has like 6 or 7 different voices. It's really weird, it's really chaotic. I really appreciate it, because you get the idea that she's unhinged almost immediately, which is good. That's a good thing to get about the person who's been forcing you to kill your friends that you didn't know were your friends for 2+ years. God, Danganronpa's a little fucked up. So yeah, her attitude shifts are really cool. I like how she's twins with Mukuro, and when you ask about the last name, she says, yeah, don't bring it up, we constantly get that. Whatever you think it is, that's what it is. I'm so fucking tired of this question. So I think that's pretty funny. The way that she talks about despair constantly is super heavy-handed, but also the way the game treats hope and despair is heavy-handed, so that's not really on her. Regardless, talking during the last trial and how you have to inspire the other characters and just everything that comes about in that last trial is super good, and part of it is because of Junko's appearance and how she conveys information. I'm gonna go ahead and put Junko in A tier. Probably above Celeste. Yeah, she's pretty good as a villain. If Monokuma was on this tier list, which he's not, I'd probably put him right above Mondo. I ended up liking him a lot more than I thought I would. I figured he'd just be kind of a plot device, and he is. I mean, characters usually are plot devices, but the characterization of him was genuinely kind of cool. I got more attached to him as the game went on, despite the fact that he was instigating teenagers killing other teenagers. But this is a story, so these aren't real, and I can appreciate him as a character. Next we have the last normal student, which is Chihiro. I love him a lot. I'll just go ahead and say he is my favorite character in the game, and this is 100% bias, which I think your favorite character should be biased. You pick them because you like them too much, usually, for me at least. And there's no reason for Chihiro to be this high up, but I just love him so much. His design is super cute. I like his voice. I like his supports. The stuff about how he became the ultimate programmer is pretty cool in my opinion. I like them a lot. His role in the story is super, I don't know if I want to say stunted, because he has a lot of longevity to him. I wish he didn't die as soon as he did, but them's the breaks. A lot of people's favorite character probably died first in the Danganronpa series, because it's gotta be somebody. Fun to interact with, appreciate the supports, bias in the design. Alter Ego also gets lumped into Chihiro because he created Alter Ego. Seeing the determination of Alter Ego was also very interesting, in the way that some of the cast treats that laptop as a friend is, honestly, it feels pretty good, as silly as it is, because it's just seeing Chihiro live on in a way. So this leaves us with Mukuro, the most mysterious character in the game, because we see her as Junko, and then she dies almost immediately, and we don't realize that that wasn't Junko until the last, 40 minutes of the game or whatever. The mystery around this character is super good. It's not about who Mukuro is, it's what she represents, and that's what makes her interesting to me. She's the ultimate soldier, so she's like a badass, and obtained basically no wounds or scars in years of combat. That's kind of sick. Learning about her as a corpse, despite seeing her at the beginning of the game, is super interesting. Despite seeing her at the beginning of the game, it's super interesting, and I liked a lot about the development of those trials and how unprepared I felt going into each one, you know? It would be nice to understand her more on an individual level, but we do get kind of a look into that with Junko's supports, which you basically have to be in the fun extra mode to see. And she talks about being homeless and a few other things that, well, don't make sense from a Junko standpoint, but are super neat to realize after the fact that oh shit, that's Mukuro. She's not annoying. In fact, she's pretty cool from what we see. But because we don't see more of her, I'm going to put her in B tier above Aoi. Alright, okay, and that's the tier list. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments about why your favorite character is actually an S tier and not a C tier, and I'm mean and I'm wrong. If you like the video or you want to argue with me more, then I recommend leaving a like or subscribing if you want to, and I will see you all around later.